we really need to talk about live service games and this idea of the games dying. We're going to take a look at Marvel Rivals, we're going to look at Overwatch, and we're going to look at Helldivers and some other potential outliers as well. But we're going to begin with Marvel Rivals because this is where a lot of the debate is kind of coming from. And the question is the game actually dying off? Is it losing players? Well, if you take a look at the concurrent active players on SteamDB, you will see that it indicates that, yes, there is a drop from obviously the very lofty heights the game achieved back when it launched. Now, typically what happens when a game launches, it will have its biggest spike of players. Then over time, these players will bleed off as you're left with your kind of like, I don't want to say your hardcore players, but your more sort of engaged players that maybe that game becomes their live service game. So they play that game almost religiously. Now, other players will drop in and drop out depending on updates. Maybe it's a new character being added to the game that they enjoy. Maybe it's a character that's being added to the game that they don't particularly enjoy. Maybe they're a tank player and it's a duelist player being added to the game or hero. They don't want to play that. They want to play a tank, so they're not particularly interested. Now, where this gets very interesting is when we start looking at what the implications actually are for each of the individual games we're going to speak about in this video. Because how and why and when does a live service game die? And is a game like Marvel Rivals actually in trouble? Is a game like Overwatch 2 in trouble? Is a game like Helldivers 2 in trouble? Now, before we begin, I want to put this over to you guys because I'm sure you'll have an opinion straight away. If I say to you, what is a successful live service game? Is Overwatch 2 successful? Is Marvel Rivals successful? Or is Helldivers 2 successful? Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably most players will say, actually, Helldivers 2 has been really successful. Yet Helldivers 2 has very high highs and sort of not very low lows, but it has high highs, and then a lot of the player base drops off. Because of the way that game is designed, it brings you in when there's a major update. For example, the defense of Super Earth, which happened recently after the Illuminate invasion. That's a big story point. It's a different way of doing live service games as well. Anyway, it brings you back to the game, you play, and then maybe you stop playing. This is exactly how I played. And you can see, again, looking at things like SteamDB, where the player base spikes during these events, then it drops back down. It doesn't get anywhere near, though, where it began, because that launch, that initial hype, games really cannot recapture that again. You've almost got one chance, and then it's kind of like you have to service your existing player base or what player base is left, and then slowly try and gather players in with really good updates over time. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm sure most of you guys out there would say, yeah, Helldivers 2 successful. Because then if you look at the team, you look at the way the game was funded, although it was partly developed with PlayStation or funded with PlayStation and published, the team size is not astronomically massive. It's nowhere near the size of Overwatch or Rivals, so it's a lot cheaper to develop. So in essence, they make more money. And we know that Arrowhead is actually funding their own game now completely. They don't have a partner for the next game from the studio, which will be interesting to see what that is. Anyway, let's begin. And what I want to do is we're going to go into SteamDB. Now, I think there needs to be some disclaimers here because a lot of the time you'll see people talk about this website and say, oh, the numbers are trash. They don't really mean anything. I've even been dismissive of this over time. But there are some facts we need to be aware of with this. It is a relevant data point that shows concurrent and peak players, and in some cases total players, although that's aggregated. You can kind of see down here owner estimations are basically like how many people have got the game. This is done by Play Tracker, Gamealytic, and VG Insights. You can see, though, they vary quite a bit. But for owner estimations, we can actually go to the official, I can show you this for Rivals. I pulled this up for Rivals over here. This was way back in February. It's from a fan account, but this is basically saying, look, there's been 40 million people have tried this game. So you could say, hey, 40 million people have picked the game up. Again, remember, when we look at things like SteamDB, it's just for Steam, right? Rivals is available on console, right? It's available on Epic. It's available on different platforms. But as I say, it is a viable data point, and it's a point we can look at, and it's a point we can discuss. So with Rivals, if we just take this in the capsule right now, it's got 44,000 people playing the game right now on Steam, which, like I said, isn't the total player base, because you've still got your console player base and people playing on PC on other platforms, and the Chinese player base, although maybe to some degree they are playing on Steam, but things get a bit different there, kind of a bit messed up. We're not going to go into that in the video, but you can see, like, there was a massive peak, right? The launch of the game, 644,000. This was actually after the launch. This was a couple of weeks after, but big peak. And then you can see it kind of achieves about 100,000 concurrent players. Now, of course, this is millions of players over a day because this is 44,000 people playing right now. These players are logging in, logging out. It's constantly rotating. Now, one thing we like to do with this is we go out to, we zoom out and we take a look. And what I really like with SteamDB is it shows you where major updates happen. So if you go over here, you can see this was Season 1, Eternal Night Falls. This was the first sort of official season. Remember, you had Season 0. Like, if I go back even further, you'll see this is even higher, right? So this one over here, no, it actually doesn't want to go back further, whatever. It doesn't matter. This data only really matters for the 6-month period, because the point I want to make is when you get the updates, you do get an injection of players, but you will notice one thing is happening on this graph. So like Season 1 pops, yeah, you got a bit of a pop, and then you've got a bleed of players. Now, this is still an incredibly high amount of players that are playing concurrently, right, for this game, an insane number. Then you get Season 1 second stage, so I think this is Season 1.5. You get a bit of a peak there, but again, it's nowhere near the actual Season 1. Then we go through a bit of a decline, and then here we get Season 2 begins. Again, you can see this is like, yeah, it's a peak. This was Emma Frost's season, and it starts to drop down. Then you get Season 2.5, which is Ultron, and again, you can see it's still dropping down, blah, 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 blah. But you'll notice something has happened here, right? This is a little bit hard to show, but you can kind of see how it sort of goes up a little bit here. This here might be the stabilization of the peak concurrence of this game. Now, I think if it was stabilizing at around 100,000 concurrent players a day at the end of a season, this is something you've also got to be aware of. That's actually pretty good. And I'm sure the developers are quite happy with that. Again, it all depends on how much it costs the developers to actually build content, how much they're making from the game through their various monetization systems, and if they can keep up with their content cadence. Now, in relation to Marvel Rivals, we are going into a world now where this game is going to release a hero every single month. This is insane. Like, this is actually massively, ridiculously accelerated levels of content. Now, this is an attempt to cause these spikes consistently. Now, you've got to think, like, look at Rivals, look at Marvel. There'll be fans of Daredevil. There'll be fans of Deadpool. There'll be fans of, insert whatever hero you want here, right? Or character from, there's literally thousands of characters, right? I could just start going down the list of X-Men, like, where's Cyclops? You know what I mean? Or you could just, I'd be really hyped. If Cyclops was coming, I'd be like, wow, I really want to check that out. That's more interesting to me than maybe Emma Frost was. I mean, Emma Frost is a relatively new character anyway in the Marvel sort of wider universe, but like, that is something Rivals has got, where they know they can create a moment to bring people into the game that maybe might not have played the game yet. And that's the critical thing here. So if you've got a Cyclops fan and you say Cyclops is coming out in Season 4, that might bring people in. And then Season 4.5, which is a month later, then you've got another character that comes out. This might also bring other players in. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're trying to accelerate their hero development, because, and we do know this from, and we'll not bring this quote up though, right? Because I bring this quote up a lot, and I'm sure this is like, I love it, because I'm going to ad-lib it, but you can totally Google this and find it. It is from the general manager of Overwatch at the launch of Overwatch 2, saying the reason why heroes are in the Battle Pass, and you have to buy the Battle Pass to get the heroes, or grind for absolutely ages to unlock them. Bearing in mind, remember, new heroes are generally quite strong at the start of a season. Was because they were the highest engagement system in the game, and we felt it was a natural fit. That is an attitude of someone who should never, ever, ever be in charge of any game ever. That is horrific. That is, you're looking at your players as a engagement system. Like, you're looking at them going, how can I extract the most engagement out of our players with an engagement system that I can monetize? That is terrible. The simple answer is, you just make a fucking good game. Make a good game. People play a game. That's literally it. So to me, it was horrific. It's one of the worst quotes I've ever seen from anyone anywhere. It was so bad. It's so bad. It's on PC Gamer, I believe. You guys can go and Google it. You'll find it. It'll probably come up with tweets from me tweeting about it at the time when I could be bothered tweeting stuff like that. But yeah, horrific stuff. But what I'm trying to say here in a roundabout way is, when you look at Rivals, it is a case of, heroes are your highest engagement thing. You don't sell the heroes, but you do sell skins. But you want to add heroes to the game because maybe there's fans of certain heroes, because obviously the Marvel universe is massive. Those people might come in and play your game. So you've got this way of trying to create these bumps quite often. Now, because they're accelerating the rate, they're going to try and do this even more, literally once a month, which I think is insane. But I do want to say, I think when it comes down to like, is this a dead game? I don't think it is. I don't think it's anywhere near a dead game. I will say that I think players' habits are changing. Again, like I can't just say this is what I think, so everyone thinks the same, because that's complete bollocks. But for me, I've noticed that my sort of habits have changed, where I don't just play one game as my live service game. Or, like even saying that sounds a bit sick, to be honest. But like I used to just like relentlessly play Overwatch. That was it. That was my game. I played it. Obviously, I made loads of videos on it every day. Videos, playing the game. But as the years go by, things change. And I mean, like now, I've been playing a lot of June. I play a lot of, obviously, I play Rivals. I play Overwatch every now and again. It's like you bounce around these games. I play Helldivers too. You bounce around all these games. And I feel like that's kind of what the modern live service game industry kind of is, with the one exception being Fortnite, which I think is just absolutely outrageous when it comes to a live service. Maybe you could even put like League of Legends in that, like if you class it as like a MOBA live service, which it essentially is. The top of its category and has been for a very long time. But Fortnite, I would say, is a ridiculous one. So I think Rivals is fine. But I do want to go on and talk about Overwatch now, because what I'm going to do is we'll talk about Helldivers in a minute, because Overwatch is really interesting. So this is Overwatch. Now, remember what I said about having this sort of baseline of players. This is your player base, and it's a player base you've always got. Look at this. This is 6 months of Overwatch, right? In fact, let's do a year. This is a year of Overwatch, right? I think actually the 6-month one kind of looks a little bit better for what I want to show. Look at this. Look at the players, right? Okay, yeah, they've dropped down like 23,000 here. Like, remember, this is peak concurrence of that day. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, and then it jumps up there, 59,000. Tuesday. What happened there? Season 15. I can't remember what happened in season 15. Big pump. Okay, then we drop back down to these levels again. Look, this is very similar here. If I was to draw a straight line across the screen, then we get this pump there. And is this? I don't know what that is. Oh, that's this season, right? Yeah. So this would have been Stadium, right? I think is that the Stadium season? No, not February. It would have been this one, wouldn't it? April. Yeah, that's 60,000. That's got to be when Stadium came out. Anyway, yeah. So like a new peak with players, and it starts bleeding off again. And this here must have been the current season, which I think is available, which doesn't have a hero yet, although I think it does have a hero test. It's kind of one of the weaker, like Overwatch has this, where it has a season like of weaker content, shall I say, where it's not a hero, then it has a hero season. They generally do better. But what I'm trying to say here is, look at this. This is just a game that is never going to break out of any kind of, like, this is the pattern for this game. It's not going anywhere. It's going to chill here, and that's fine. It's never going to reach the levels it was at back in like 2016, 2017, because it was like dominating the world. And an insane like anecdote from that, which they actually, like, this is crazy to me, but they never actually viewed Overwatch 1 as a live service game, even though they had the seasonal updates, because live service wasn't really a thing back then in 2016. It sort of was. You had obviously games like World of Warcraft and MMOs, which were essentially live service games, right? Continually updated. But it really took until like 2017, 2018 when Fortnite really started to push that, where it became obvious that you needed these sort of relentless updates in your game, new content, new ideas to keep people coming. And obviously Overwatch, as we all know, went through a horrific period where there were years of like literally no content as they were trying to develop Overwatch 2. Then that went into development hell. PvE was a disaster. And then we come out of where we are now. But the moral of the story here is this is a sustainable player base. Now, is it actually a viable player base when it comes to money? This is another issue, right? So Overwatch is expensive. Most free-to-play games are expensive these days. Expensive skins, loads of currency, all of that is designed to kind of make you think, well, it's not real money, it's fake internet money. It's fine, I can blast it on a skin or whatever. Obviously, I'm sort of like, I go round and round with this. Like, I don't like this type of monetization, never have, because I want monetization to be about actual content in the game, not just skins and stuff, because it incentivizes them to just make skins and not really push the game forward. This is why I really enjoyed Stadium as an update to Overwatch, because it was a new way of playing the game, and this is what I want. The devs are creative people. I'm sure they don't want to just be sitting there going, oh, well, we've got another hero, skins, that's it. But one of the problems will be when they look at a thing called KPIs, which is your key performance indicators. I'm sure they've got a whole host of these for a season. It'll be a case of like, I'm just going to make these season names up, but let's say season 10 had a new hero that generated, I'm going to make these numbers up as well, $10 million, right, in revenue. I'm sure they generate more, but imagine if it made 10 million in revenue because it had a new hero with new skins, and it was a fan favorite hero. Then you go to season 11. Season 11 has a brand new game mode, let's say like Stadium, and it's insane. It brings loads of people back to the game, but it only makes $4 million. Now, the reason why it didn't make as much money is because it didn't have a new hero that was a fan favorite hero that had a load of skins. That then incentivizes the people running the money aspect of the game to go, let's do less of that new game feature thing and let's do more of new heroes with skins. And that's where you get stuck in this rut. And I don't know. And I think over time, that's obviously going to bleed off because if you're not bringing new players in somehow into the game, people are not just going to play the same game forever. They will bleed off in some way, unless you've got a game like Counter-Strike, right, with millions of concurrent players. In that case, maybe things are a bit different. But even that game has updates, right? And it's got the best esports scene in the world ever for any game ever. It's not even comparable. So yeah, Overwatch isn't a dead game, but I think this is a look of, like, if this is sitting at 24,000 players, let's say, well, okay, 29,000 players as a peak concurrent. Rivals is sitting at 100,000. But remember, and this is a big remember, I think there's probably 3 or 4 times the amount of players on PC on Battle.net for Overwatch. So I think Overwatch is probably the same number on PC or very similar to what we're looking at here for Rivals. But I think Overwatch is really, really strong on consoles. I'm not sure whether it's bigger than PC, but I think it's quite close, especially for like very casual players and probably players that like spending money on skins. So I think Overwatch overall has probably got a very healthy player base. The question is, we can see, you know, like when you look at these charts, you can see it kind of is declining a bit, but the decline isn't as ridiculous as, like, you know, that's the max. I mean, when does that go back to? Yeah, so that's the Steam launch there of 75,000, which it's never going to beat. That was 2 years ago. You know, it's nowhere near beating that, and I don't think it ever will unless it has some sort of major update. But I think actually with Overwatch, and it's the last thing I'll say on it, the game is probably the IP is where the growth is for Overwatch. It's not actually the game itself. It's making more games based on the Overwatch IP, and maybe we'll see more of that in the future. I just hope it isn't a horrific mobile game, but that could be the case. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is Helldivers, because this is another relevant one when it comes to live service games. Now, this one, I don't really want to go 3 years back. I could do with going 2 years back, but I kind of can't. I don't think I can. Anyway, whatever. We'll do 3 years, right? So you can see the launch, 458,000, which obviously was insane. Now, you've got to remember, this was a live service game that was doing everything totally different. This wasn't just your free-to-play game you download and then you waiting for updates from the developers, you blast through the content, maybe you complete a battle pass and that's it. This was saying, no, we're going to have this living, breathing world where it's going to have this organic, in a way, emergent storytelling, where we'll have like almost like a dungeon master. Obviously, everyone knows him as Joel, who's conducting the story. Helldivers are being deployed to different planets. You're fighting different enemies. It's a co-op shooter. And then we're going to have things like a battle pass, but we're going to call it a war bond, and it's going to be available to buy whenever you want. And it's not time gated. Like, obviously, Overwatch loved that and still does, because it's a great engagement metric to get people to panic and buy stuff. FOMO, and it's terrible. But like, Helldivers brought something new to the party, and it obviously was a massive upgrade to Helldivers, the first game, which obviously was the top-down sort of shooter. It reminded me of like Alien Breed, because I'm that old. That's a really old game, by the way. But yeah, or like, I guess Magicka, right? It's Arrowhead, right? That's where it all came from. But this game did something different. But again, you can still see there is this massive drop-off in players. Now, it may have had a massive... Remember, again, this is just Steam. And it must be said, Helldivers is now available on Xbox as well, which I think is quite interesting because it's a PlayStation published game, and it might actually be the first-party PlayStation published game that's on Xbox, but don't quote me on that. And obviously, it's available on PC. But like I said, we can only look at the PC numbers off SteamDB. But this is just like a massive drop-off, and then you start seeing like little updates, and you get like 150,000 players for Omens of Tyranny. And then, what I think is really interesting, we might be able to see this on the 1 year. So Omens of Tyranny here, this was the first like big update. This had like the weapon rebalance update, right? Because they messed up the weapons in the game and it didn't feel great. And then boom, the player base is back. They really fixed the weapons. because obviously a lot of the power fantasy in a PvE game is having strong weapons, but for some reason, the Helldivers dev team were going around balancing the game like it was a PvP game for the weapons, and then, they've quickly realized that was bad, and they fixed it, and look at this, the player base shoots back up. Then it doesn't really get back down to the levels it was down over here. So if we look over here, it's like 29,000. Over here, it's like 59,000. Even at its lowest point, it's 35. It's still more than the pre-Omens of Tyranny, where the weapon balance was all going wrong and stuff. So this game proves that you can actually pump your player base up with really good, really powerful updates, whereas maybe Overwatch and Marvel Rivals are suffering from that, because every time they do an update, again, just to show you the Rivals chart, they get a pump, but then they drop down. They get a pump, and then they drop down. They get a pump, and then they drop down. And then maybe just here they're starting to stabilize. Or you go the Overwatch way, where you get a little pump, and then drop, little pump, little drop. You get a little bit more of a pump, a little bit of a drop. And you always hit this baseline of around 25,000 concurrent players, or like 29,000 or so. And that's your floor. So like to Overwatch, I'd be looking at this if I was running Overwatch going, well, we can't do any worse than 29,000 unless we totally fuck the game with a stupid update. Or take it in a direction nobody wants. If we just keep doing what we're doing, we're going to bounce around this level probably for the next 10 years. And is that fine? I don't know. Maybe if that's how they're making money. But again, this is the whole issue of like Microsoft and what they're doing with their laying off of people and what they might do with Xbox in the future. Again, I don't know. Because all I know about Microsoft is they're spending a literal shit ton of money on AI development at the cost of everything else, hoping that they're going to generate some sort of like artificial general intelligence that will take over the world. Anyway, going back to Helldivers, then you get this update, right? The Heart of Democracy. Now, this one, I mean, look at the player numbers here for this. This is 163,000. It's more than the previous big update, but this was the big update. This is the update. This is the update where you're going to defend Earth, Super Earth, from invasion. This brings everyone back, right? I'm not playing the game in this period here, but I'm here, right? And you can see the numbers are obviously reflecting that people are coming back to play it. But if we zoom in on this a little bit more, if we go to 3 months so we can see this, you can see here 32,000, and then it peaks up to 163, and then now it's kind of stabilizing at like 56,000. You can see now it's got like 58,000 players pretty consistently around that number, 24-hour peak. It is kind of, well, the weekend it'll be a little bit higher, and then it sort of jumps up and down. Or maybe it's a little bit lower actually at the weekend there. It's a bit higher now. But like this is a very serviceable live service game. I think that's what I wanted to kind of talk about with Helldivers. I think it's doing really well. Now, there is one thing I want to show you, because when people talk about a dead game, it is not great to throw it around and go, this game is dead or this game's whatever. I want to show you this game, right? So this is Supervive. Now, it's a MOBA Battle Royale meets hero shooter, right? It looks like League of Legends. It isn't League of Legends, though, because it's a MOBA Battle Royale and a hero shooter all together. It's actually a really fun game, but anyway, the Steam chart will tell a tale. So I believe this is available on, let's go back max, because that really does tell a tale. But I think this is available on Epic as well. I'm sure it is. But yeah, look at that. 689 players playing it right now, and it's got 47,000 all-time peak. Now, what's going on here is a little bit different. So this launched with a big, like 47,000 concurrent players. I think that's really good. If you could hold that level of players, that's really good. Again, remember, this all comes back down to how much investment was put into this game to develop it. It's made by a bunch of old devs from like Blizzard and Riot. They all got together. They got external VC funding. I think, I want to say it's NetEase that funded this game, but it might be Tencent. I think it's Tencent, actually. It's not NetEase. Don't quote me on that anyway. But this game came out with a launch, but it wasn't really a launch. It was kind of like the early access in a way. And then you can see it just completely hit the bottom, and it's just chilled at the bottom at this level. Now, this game is going to be one to watch because it is going to launch, I think, like in 2 weeks or a week's time. What will happen to these numbers? Will they actually go up, or will they not move? And is this the end of a game? If they don't move, it is the end of a game. It's like that game. What was that game? The FPS game where you control two characters. Something to do with Shroud, it was. Or I think he was like a consultant on the game or something. Split something, I want to call it. I can't remember. It's not Splitgate, whatever. But that game, it's been cancelled and turned off because it didn't get enough players to actually sustain it. Whereas we know games like Marvel Rivals have definitely got enough players to sustain. We know games like Overwatch have definitely got enough players to sustain itself. The question is just what happens in the future. But I do think a good place to sort of wrap this up is like, where do we go? Like, where do we go from here? Like, what is the end game for all of these like live service games? You're going to reach levels of saturation where you can't play every game going, right? And I think games are being honestly designed now with that in mind. They're designed for you to come back around updates and then off you go, do whatever, play the next game. If you're like me, maybe you're playing Dune Awakening right now. It's the latest sort of addiction you've got. Yeah, you're going to jump in on Rivals because there's a new update. Lucky enough for me, I've got access to the content creator server, so I can play the new heroes right now, so I can mess around with Phoenix. Then it's like, okay, Helldivers has got an update. I'm going to check that out. Maybe there's a patch note which comes out and it's like a new vehicle, a new stratagem. Okay, I might jump in and try that. So you've got this fluidity. Oh, look, Overwatch is updated with a new hero trial. I'll go and check that out. I think players are starting to turn into that kind of player. And I think that really affects the way we have to view these games, because I don't think you're going to see games like, you're not going to see like an Overwatch of old. In a way, I mean, just again to show you this, we'll go back to this. If I show you Rivals, because this really does sum this up, and we go to the, I don't know why this doesn't show us the, no, that is the max, isn't it, of Rivals? Yeah, December. Yeah, that's right. Because Eternals Falls, that's right. That's right, isn't it? Because Eternal Falls. Yeah, that was because I remember, because it broke the concurrent peak after, because it was gaining more and more players, and everyone was like, wow, this has broke the trend of live service declining. But you can see it was kind of just like, it was almost like a one-off, then it dropped down. Anyway, yeah, what I'm saying is you get a peak of players, right, and then it drops off. I think when we look at Rivals, this happens really fast. This is, we're looking back from, December 2024, and now we're already at this level. I feel like games like Overwatch, which obviously I cannot show you because they only went on Steam a year and a half, well, 1.9 years ago, to be specific. But like this game back in 2016, I'm sure 2016, 2017, 2018, it was really high player numbers. And that decline, which we're seeing happen in 6 months for Rivals, took years to hit Overwatch because it was a different like world. I think gamers were just different. You didn't have as many live service games to sort of suck away your time, and definitely not as many games in the same genres. Like Overwatch and Rivals is always going to be a comparison. They're both hero shooters, and they're both the top hero shooters. And for a while, Rivals was absolutely destroying Overwatch. The question is it now? I don't know. Is it at its sort of, is this its bottom of its player base, which isn't really a bottom because it's 100,000 players? It is a very interesting debate, this is. What I want you guys to do in the comments is let me know how your habits have changed, because this is something you could talk about forever and ever and ever. I could literally make a video for hours and hours on this, because there's tons of like topics and discussion points. There's loads of data you could look at. But I think ultimately it comes down to what your, I guess, experience is as a gamer now. Like, are you playing just one game? Are you playing tons of games? Do you bounce around games where there's updates? I don't know. That's definitely the type of gamer that I am. And is Marvel Rivals dead? No. Is Overwatch dead? No. I mean, these are just stupid statements. Like, no, they're not dead. They'd only die if they're literally turned off. But to get to that point, they have to have some horrific, and I mean horrific, updates to the game to stop people from playing, which I think both those games are at a point where they're always going to have a player base. It will just come down to if that player base is generating enough revenue and therefore profit for the parent companies to keep investing in adding new content into those games. But as I've said, when you've got things like prioritizing skin design and cosmetic design over actual game design, that can be an issue long term. It's almost like you've got short-term returns. The example I gave earlier on in the video of looking at a season where you've got a new hero makes a lot of money, and a season where you don't have a hero in regards to Overwatch, but a brand new game mode, which might have taken years to make, might not make as much money. And that might then make the money people go, we're not doing that again, do more of the season before. But then that results in absolute stagnation of your game. So I've got no doubt in my mind that there are discussions that take place all the time, and probably people fighting the good fight inside Blizzard, trying to get new content actually added to the game because they want to make games. And I'm sure games like Rivals are the same. What I will say about Rivals, it does look like they've got like more of a streamlined development process in a lot of ways, and possibly they can make more content faster. But this is another interesting dynamic. maybe they're making content too quick, and then you do have that oversaturation issue of you're giving players too much content. They actually don't even get time to absorb the content before the next content's out. And that could result in player numbers bouncing all over the place. I don't know. Or it could result in generating more revenue. I really don't know. All right, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. But like I said, it's a very complex issue. And it's not as simple as just going games are dead. No, player bases will always change. And also another thing as well is it's summer. Less people play games in summer because they go outside and touch grass, which you should do. And I definitely should go and do. All right, guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you did enjoy the video, then like the video, subscribe to the channel. And I'll catch you a lovely lot on the next one. See you soon.